I last spoke about being blessed, which is another way of speaking about how wonderful God's favour and protection is over us. Perhaps the most amazing sermon ever recorded is in Matthew's Gospel, and you can read it. It's a Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, 6 and 7. This is a sermon about the kingdom of heaven as delivered by Jesus. He begins with what we know as the Beatitudes. Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." Then he goes on to add, "those who mourn and the humble," and so on. Now, of course, this message was delivered in the early part of Jesus' ministry, and people had come from everywhere to hear him speak. And as they gathered together on the side of that mountain, overlooking the Sea of Galilee, they were just simply amazed at his teachings. Jesus is not speaking about humans' natural tendencies or even our personalities in this passage. Rather, he's speaking about spiritual blessings. These are all gifts of grace. The very first beatitude that Jesus mentions says this: "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now, everyone I know wants to go to heaven. And so many think that if they're good and if they do all of the right things, then they're well on their way. But what does it mean to be poor in spirit? For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Let me put it to you like this. When we're in the presence of God, we recognise that on our own, we are nothing. And we see that without him, we have nothing, and that we can do nothing. It seems that we are by nature quite proud people. Or perhaps a better way of saying that is many of us are full of pride. That pride within us wants to bring about some self-adulation, or again, putting it another way, self-worship. A building up of ourselves. We want to think that we are, and that others think that we are, all right. This is a normal human characteristic, but it presents itself as a proud and self-sufficient way to those around us, and it comes with a desire to be respected as well as applauded. We want to be self-reliant because we are so self-confident. The bottom line is this, that it's all about pride. The old "I did it my way" syndrome. Under our own steam, we are poor and empty, with nothing to give, no resources, just we stand empty before a living God. We have nothing, and frankly, we deserve nothing. To be poor in spirit is to recognise that we cannot do this on our own. It is relying totally on God in all of our circumstances. Poor in spirit is something God makes you to be, not something you make yourself to be. Then standing before God, it is the understanding that we are nothing, we've done nothing, and we can do nothing. It is to be emptied of excuses or self-justification. In this very first beatitude, Jesus is putting his finger right on to the heart of the problem: our self-worth. This message, indeed, this verse, is all about grace. This is God's undeserved favour and blessing poured out upon those who claim Jesus as their Lord and Saviour. He has to start with this salutation: "Blessed are the poor in spirit." It has to be the very first beatitude, because if we do not know that, we will not go on to mourn, which is the second beatitude. We certainly will not be humble or meek, and that's the third beatitude. And most importantly, we will not hunger and thirst after righteousness. That is the fourth beatitude. The New Living Translation puts it like this: God blesses those who are poor and realise their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. How can that be? I recall a fellow student saying to me some years ago that he had discovered that God is a God of paradox. That is, that God is not what we expect him to be. He is so much more. And he comes in so many different ways, many more than we would ever expect into our lives. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Happy are the poor in spirit. How can the world say that? Strange. Doesn't fit. But God says, blessed. And blessed not because being poor in spirit earns God's favour. That goes back to that pride angle again. Rather, being blessed because when God shows us our emptiness, when God reveals how inadequate we are on our own, when he humbles us, it is so that he might lift us up and fill us with himself. You are blessed because you who have nothing, Christ has been given to you so that you might be everything, so that you can have everything. So yours is the kingdom of heaven. Just to recap, the idea is not that we become poor in spirit and earn the right to the kingdom, so that somehow our humility pays our entrance fee, as it were, securing a place for us in the kingdom of heaven. No, not at all. It doesn't work that way. It means this, that when we become aware of our own shortcomings, when we see that we are poor in spirit, we're able to give thanks for the wonders of God's grace. And that's free for us to accept into our lives. And it's because of this grace that we are made citizens of the kingdom of heaven. May God reveal more of himself to you this week. Every blessing to you.